How are you all, guys? Today we are going to see how this caste system emerged and who created it, and about this very famous debate about who came first, whether it's Aryans or Dravidians. Because what actually happened is not anywhere in our history books, because what actually happened is entirely different from what we've been thinking that has happened. So to understand it very easily, you can see the present day example. If you go to any school across the globe, if you enter any class, you will obviously see some kind of groups among students. Even if the total strength of the students of that class is just 30, you will see at least 5 to 6 groups. They may not hate each other, but still they don't mingle with the members of the other groups. So it is quite common in colleges and in schools, especially of higher standards. But in lower classes it will be very less common. So what happens, especially if you go to LKG, UKG and first standard, you won't find any groupism at all. But as they ascend higher, when they enter the higher age group, you can find the groupism emerge among them. It emerges. Nobody influences them to create groups. They don't read any books. Then how come it happens just like that, so naturally? It happens. There was no groupism when they were in their younger age, probably because they were all very pure. They didn't have any contaminated thoughts, impure thoughts. That is why there was absolutely no groupism among them till they reach a certain age. So when they enter the 5th grade or 6th grade, groupism starts to emerge. The main reason is they develop certain kind of characters that doesn't fit with members of everybody, members of all the groups. So it doesn't fit with everybody, so they mingle with those whom they are very comfortable with. You can't blame it, right? For example, if someone is very soft hearted, then obviously his friends will also be soft hearted, because they mingle with those of similar characters. Similarly, if someone is very rough and tough, obviously his friends will also be rough and tough. The soft members will just leave that group. So this is how it happens. Sometimes for example, if you think there is absolutely no groupism in that particular class, at one point when some set of people start developing some rough attitude, they automatically separate from the rest of the class. That's how the first groupism begins. From here, in this group, if someone is even more rough, they will separate from this rough group. So that's how these divisions begin. This is exactly how casteism begins. Unlike we all tend to think through our history books that Brahmins came somewhere outside India. No, they didn't come from anywhere outside India. They belong here. Actually, we all were Brahmins initially, and these Brahmins, as we call today, they are Aryans, which means Aryans only exist in the entire world in the beginning for the first 2500 years. Because if you want to know when these Aryans exist in this earth, or especially in India, it dates back to 5000 years. Yes, they had been here since 5000 years. But instead of calling them as they, I want to call them as we, because we were all Aryans in the beginning. After the completion of first 2500 years, what happens is we start to become, no matter what kind of term you want to use, but the actual thing should be, we just separated from Aryans. We may have labeled as anything, but we separated from Aryans, which means our characters became not so good. So it started to get bad. So we wouldn't be comfortable with Aryans. Of course, we were Aryans in the beginning, but after taking several rebirths, our attitude gets corrupted, which is why we separated from Aryans. That's how we separated from Aryans. That's the first division. So similarly, as I mentioned with that school example, this bad group start dividing into many bad groups. Similarly, that good group, Aryan groups, even there they cannot all be very good. Some would be best, some would be better, some would be good. So they also started to divide. So divisions happen just like that. But there were absolutely no divisions for the first 2500 years, because we were all so pure at heart, just like kids. That's why there were absolutely no divisions. So this is how casteism started to emerge. But we want to blame on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. But the funny thing about it is there were only 4 varnas in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, but there are 25,000 castes in India. How can you relate Gita to this caste system? But at one point some get so cruel to blame everything on religion. That is why they correlate Gita with this, but Gita has nothing to do with this, because Gita is a religious book. Not only Gita, many other religious books are there, like Bible, Quran and so on, but Gita is the mother of all Vedic texts, not only to Hindu Vedic texts, but also the mother of the Vedic texts of all religions. So if they raise the question whether Gita was written by Aryans, yes, it is true, it is written by Aryans, but they were not pure Aryans, because they started to write Gita after they start to convert into after they separated from Aryans. So they cannot be called Aryans as such, but still compared to the present time, we can call them as Aryans, because they were not as impure as we are now. So that's why I call them as Aryans. It is by Aryans all religious texts were written, no matter what religions it belongs to. So Aryans created all religions and religious texts, which means all religions and religious texts were created by brilliant people, because Aryans means brilliant people. That's it. So we were brilliant in the beginning, and we have become so foolish in the end. So if you want to call this as evolution, it is actually the evolution in reverse, because people tend to think evolution means it's progressing, but the actual fact is it's not progressing, it's actually reversing. So to understand all of these things in a very simple manner, you should know of this spiritual truth, spiritual knowledge. God says that there is a 5000 year time cycle called kalpa, and whatever happens in one kalpa, that keeps repeating kalpa after kalpa, which means if you are watching this video now, it obviously means you have watched this video 5000 years back on the very same day. This is going to exact accurately kalpa after kalpa. That is, you are going to watch the same video every 5000 years once on this very same day. So that's how accurate this world drama repeats every 5000 years once. So God gives this knowledge towards the end of each kalpa, that is towards the end of each Kali Yuga, the last 100 years of Kali Yuga. That is when God comes to this earth and he enters a human's body and start delivering this knowledge. He doesn't take birth like humans, he just enters an old man's body and he names him Brahma. And whoever listens to this knowledge of God, they are called Brahmins, because in Vedas it is mentioned that Brahmins were born out of Brahma's mouth. It means Brahmins are those who listens to this knowledge given by God through Brahma and accept it, and that's how they become Brahmins. So this has nothing to do with the separate religion called Brahmin who were born out of womb. No, this is the exact Brahmin that Vedas represent or mention. So in this last 100 years of Kali Yuga is called Sangam Yuga. That is where God and his children, that is we, meet together, and God comes here purely to give this knowledge, and he says this world was heaven for the first 2500 years and now it has become hell, and now it's time to convert the hell back to heaven, and this hell will be destroyed. Only after the destruction of hell, heaven will be established. But there is no need to be afraid, because we souls are imperishable. But one thing that's sure to happen is our souls can become pure and also can become impure. Now undoubtedly all souls on this planet is impure now, and after taking knowledge of God, we can purify our souls. To the extent we make our souls pure, we can get higher posts in heaven. We can either enter the heaven in the beginning or in the middle or towards the end. It depends on how pure we become. So he gives this way. Actually this is the only way to purify ourselves, and that is to remember God. God says we are not actually this perishable body, but an imperishable soul that exists between the eyebrows. That is why Hindus keep bindis right here, and we have to consider ourselves as this soul and not as this body. So we have to constantly remind ourselves that we are in fact the souls. It is the soul that sees through the eyes, it is the soul that listens through ears, it is the soul that speaks through mouth. So the moment the soul leaves this body, the eyes, ears, mouth, they can't function on its own. So it is the soul that operates this body, and you should be aware of this thing, which means you should become soul conscious, because the residents of heaven were soul conscious. Now we are body conscious. Because we are body conscious, we are enslaved by lust, anger, attachment, greed and ego. These 5 vices are present both in men and women, which is called Ravan or Satan. Only these 5 vices are called Satan, and there is no separate being called Satan or Maya. So God comes here to rescue us from the grasp of Maya. The whole world now is the kingdom of Ravan. So he has come to make us escape from the prison of Ravan. So that's why he gives this knowledge. Ravan makes us his slaves by giving body consciousness when we enter hell. So that is when we start developing lust, anger, greed, attachment and ego, because of which we suffer a lot day by day. So towards the end, God reveals this truth and asks us to conquer these 5 vices, especially the lust. And the only way to do that is to consider ourselves as the imperishable soul and to remember the Father of all souls, who is God. And he is called the Supreme Soul because he is also a soul. We souls, before entering this, before taking birth in this earth, were present here. This is the world of souls. This is called Parandam by Hindus and Paralok by Christians. This is actually a golden red colored light world. There won't be night or day, because there wouldn't be any sun or moon or stars. So we souls exist there, and Father of all the souls, Supreme Soul, that is God, also exists there, and he is also a soul. That is why we call him as Supreme Soul, and his name is God Shiva. Shiv means light, so he is always Shiv, which means he doesn't take birth like us. Now he says the only way to conquer these 5 vices is to consider ourselves as souls and to remember God Shiva as a point of light. The more time you dedicate in remembering God Shiva, the more sins we have accumulated in our souls from our past births get burnt. So that's the only way to wash away our sins, because we committed sins. So it is our responsibility, it is our responsibility to destroy those sins, and the only way to do that is to remember God as a point of light. This is what God says, and depending on the faith you have, you put your effort in washing out your sins, and you can decide what kind of post you want to take in heaven. It's all up to you. God doesn't interfere. God just gives you the way. That's it. That's the only duty of God. That's it. God is not responsible for all the sufferings that's been happening here. Then why do we all suffer? It's all because of the past karma. That is the sins that we had committed in our past births and also this birth. So we have to face the punishments for that, but there is one way out. That is why God came in, and he gives this knowledge, and he says, the more you remember me, the more permanently you remember me, there is more chance that you wouldn't be punished for your past sins, because your sins would be washed off, which means the capability to commit sins will be forgotten. That is what called as the washing out of sins, and the only way for that is to remember God, and God gives this knowledge. And if we obediently follow each and every word of God, put that into practice, then we can become the greatest king of heaven, who is Shri Krishna, which is why they celebrate, especially in South India, they celebrate during Ekadasi the opening ceremony of heaven, because Sri Krishna is the first king of heaven. So this is the knowledge given by God. This is the Raj Yoga, that is considering yourself as soul and to think of God is Raj Yoga, and it is only through this Raj Yoga we ordinary humans become deities and enter heaven. So God is giving this knowledge to make us from Naran to Narayan, that is ordinary man to the deity Lord Narayana. This 5000 year kalpa can be divided into 4 yugas. So if we divide this 5000 year time cycle into 4 equal sections, it would be 1250 years each, and this is Satyug, this is Tretayug, this is Dwapar this is Kali Yuga. Satyug and Tretayug both combinedly called heaven, Dwapar and Kali Yuga both combinedly called hell. So we are Brahmins now. After accepting God, we become Brahmins, that's it. No matter what caste you belong to previously, it doesn't matter. If you accept God, you are Brahmin now, that's it. So by becoming Brahmin and putting much effort, we become deities. That is why Brahmins are called higher than deities itself. So after that we start losing our power. So souls gradually loses its power on its own. So after losing some of its power, it becomes Kshatriya. After losing some more power in Dwapar Yuga, it becomes Vaishya. After losing all its power, it becomes Shudra. So it refers to the stage of a soul, that's it. So every single being in Kali Yuga is Shudra, no matter he belongs to upper caste or lower caste, they all belong to Shudra now, because we all have lost our power to conquer lust, anger, attachment, ego, right? That's why we are called Shudra. Now by accepting God and his way and his teachings, and by involving ourselves in yoga permanently, we become pure and enter heaven. That's why God gives this knowledge and makes us very pure. Thereby we become very brilliant, because so far we have been believing the teachings given by humans, by religious preachers. So that would make us into fools. Only God's teachings will make us brilliant. So we are becoming brilliant now, which means we are becoming Aryans now. These Aryans, after the completion of first 2500 years, become fools, because in heaven they do not fall for lust, anger, greed, attachment and ego. The reason is they didn't consider themselves as this perishable body, they would consider themselves as the souls that controls this body. So they wouldn't fall for lust, so they wouldn't fall for any other vices either. So that's why they would be very happy there. So that's why we worship them even now in Hindu temples. So they are none but us in our initial stage, that's it. So we were Aryans for the first 2500 years, and then we become into whatever you want to call only after entering Dwapar Yuga. So for first 2500 years we were Aryans, and the next 2500 years we have come out of Aryans, that's it. So this is the actual fact, because it's all given directly by God. And this knowledge that God gives in this last 100 years called Sangam Yuga, so this becomes revealed later in the next kalpa, during Dwapar Yuga, when they start creating religions and start writing Vedic texts. It becomes revealed on its own. God doesn't make them to do it. It just happens. In heaven nobody would worship God, not because they are arrogant, but because they were very happy that they didn't get any kind of pain to think of God. But after entering hell, since they become slaves of these 5 vices, obviously these 5 vices will definitely bring pain. Because of that pain, they start search for God and start creating these religions and Vedic texts. But the original knowledge that is given by God now, it won't be revealed as such in Vedic texts. Only a very minute part will be revealed. So it was first revealed in Gita, followed by other religious books. So you couldn't find the entire truth no matter how many books you read. Only when you listen from God directly you can understand. That's why it is written in Gita, no matter how many Vedas you have learnt, you cannot be called a jnani, that is, you can be called a knowledgeable soul, unless you know about the inverted tree. So the tree he refers to is this. This is how the souls hang in Parandam. It looks as if a tree is inverted, right? So it's a tree of souls. Only God comes and gives the knowledge of this tree. This tree is being worshipped by Kalpavriksham by Hindus and as Christmas tree by Christians. God is one, his knowledge is one, and he is giving this only through Raja Yoga centers that spread across the globe. So this is the actual fact. So we were all Aryans in the beginning, and now nobody is Aryan. So there's no point in blaming Aryans for this caste system, because it automatically emerged. If we all have known this in the past, then there wouldn't be so much confusion as we see now. Okay, it is high time, at least now, that you can take this knowledge to all your brothers and sisters, and we can make this world as peaceful as possible. So thanks for watching. If you want to know the Raja Yoga Meditation Center in your state, in your country, you can always WhatsApp me at this number, +91 98 946 71743. Om Shanti. Thanks for watching. Keep sharing. Please subscribe to this channel to get more and more videos of this sort. It's going to reveal more and more spiritual knowledge. So just because we are not aware of this knowledge, we start converting to other religions, start becoming rationalists or atheists. So true rationalists are those who take teachings of God, because the truth lies only here. Everything else is definitely false. That is why we suffer through those teachings. Om Shanti. Thanks for watching.